Okay, this section is about film study. When I think of film study, I think of two things. I think of critiquing myself, and I think of analyzing my opponent that I'm going to play against. Okay, now I will say this. Some of you are probably in a place right now where maybe you're so young that your team is not actually watching and analyzing your opponent that you're getting ready to play. And in that case, this section may not be geared toward you in that respect, but I still think that you, as a younger player, if y'all are not watching film as a team, you can still set up a camera on a field at a certain angle and you can film yourself running routes, and then you can go take a look at those routes and those cut-ups that you had, and you can start to look for certain tendencies that you had, certain things that you can start to correct. Okay, now snapping back to actually watching our opponent. Okay, I start with this. When I'm looking for an opponent, okay, I'm looking for this. I'm looking for the type of defense that defense is going to play. So whatever coverage that may be, maybe they're playing a 1 high coverage. Okay, maybe it's cover 1 heavy, or maybe it's cover 3, or maybe they're a 2 high team where they're playing either cover 4, where the safeties are in a little tighter, maybe they're a little lower, or maybe they're playing cover 2, where the safeties are a little bit further out. Okay, they're further back and they're a little bit closer toward the sideline. Okay, so I'm trying to see what are their common coverages. Okay, because really, especially at the high school level, hey, you're not going to see many players, many defensive backs that are just going to be out there freestyling, doing their own thing. They're in an actual coverage. They have certain responsibilities within that coverage. Okay, so for instance, if I've got a cover 2 look on the defensive side, what that really means from my perspective as a receiver, okay, that means that the middle of the field is wide open. That means that there are 2 safeties, and those 2 safeties, what they're doing is they're coming back at an angle, okay, and they're covering the deep half of the field. Okay, now the cornerbacks, what they've got is they've got flat responsibility. So that means if somebody were to come into their area within about 10 yards toward the sideline, 10 yards and under on the sideline, they are responsible for that player. Okay, now your linebackers, those guys, now since there's no safety in the middle of the field, those guys have to protect the middle of the field. So if I'm in the slot and I'm running against a backer and it's a cover 2 look, I've got to know that this linebacker that I'm going against, he cannot let me get inside of him. And if I get inside of him, he's in big trouble. So if I need to get around him, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press to his inside shoulder, which is what he's trying to protect. And therefore, I will likely move him inside, and then I'll have more space back to the outside. Okay, if it's cover 2, and I'm going against a cornerback, all right? If that cornerback has flat responsibility in cover 2, I know that he can't let me get outside of him if I'm an outside receiver. So if I press to his outside shoulder, 9 times out of 10, if he's doing it right, he's going to continue to move out because he can't get beat to the outside or he's in trouble. Okay, so if you understand what type of coverages that the defense that you're going against is going to run, you're going to be able to recognize how they line up and what the likelihood of a specific coverage is based off of where the guy in front of you is lined up. So what I always like to do is I'm looking at first on film. In order to determine a certain coverage, I'm looking at safeties first. So I want to see where the safeties lined up. Is there a 1 high safety or are there 2 safeties? Okay, are they in tight or are they a little bit further out? Okay, and then I'm looking at the defensive backs, the cornerbacks. I'm looking to see when they're in cover 2, this is how their cornerbacks play. They play head up, or maybe they play outside shade because they can't get beat outside. Okay, or maybe I've got a 1 high look. Okay, so if I see 1 high, I'm probably thinking it's either a cover 3 look, which is a type of zone. Okay, and most times in a cover 3 look, you're going to have those cornerbacks, especially at the high school level, they're going to play at about 5 to 7 yards off. Okay, whereas if you had cover 1, it's still a 1 high safety, but now the difference is that it's a man look. So your cornerbacks are likely going to play a little bit closer up. Maybe it's 4 to 5 yards and they're head up or they're inside shade. Or maybe, and this is a dead giveaway, maybe they're playing press. Maybe they're in your face and they're either head up or they're inside shade. And if I see the safety is in the middle of the field and I see a guy pressing me, I'm thinking right away it's most likely cover 1. Therefore, I know that this guy's playing me in man coverage. Therefore, I know that I can work him like this on this route to create more space. So when I'm watching film and I'm doing film study and I'm analyzing my opponent, I'm looking first at coverages, and then I want to see how do their players play in these specific coverages. Where do they line up? Okay, and then I move into more specific to the actual player that I'm going against. So maybe I'm going against their very best defensive back, their very best cornerback, and I notice that when he's in press coverage, that he typically lines up to the inside. And if I give a hard move to the inside, then he typically bites very hard on an inside move. Or maybe he doesn't bite on moves very often. Maybe he's a very patient corner. And maybe I've seen certain reps from guys that he went against on film where those guys had success against him and different looks that he gave them. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna write down what those plays were. If there's a play number next to them, maybe it's play number 52 or play number 62 on your huddle for a specific game. I'm gonna write those plays down, and I'm gonna come back to those midweek. I'm gonna watch those plays where those guys had success against that specific player, okay, when they were doing certain things, okay, and I'm gonna write those down, and I'm gonna put that in my tool belt. Okay, I'm gonna start practicing those things throughout the week. I'm gonna make sure that I know when I go against this guy, that I know how he plays. I know his tendencies. I know what's gonna work against this guy. So when I'm watching an opponent, I'm watching first coverages, which starts with the safeties, and then I'll look at the cornerbacks, and then I'll look at the linebackers. Okay, then I look at specific tendencies that a specific player that I'm likely to go against, or maybe it's a few players, I study their tendencies. I watch what works against them. I watch what doesn't work against them. And then I take note of those things. I write down the plays, and I come back to those midweek. Okay, and I study those things. And I'm prepared as I go into the game to have a plan against a specific guy on a specific type of coverage. Now, if that sounded like a lot for some of you younger players, don't worry about it. For now, just focus on trying to get open in games. Don't think too much. There will be a point where you start to watch defensive coverages as you get a little older, but we'll cross that bridge as we get there. You can watch this video at that point later on down the road. Now, in terms of me critiquing myself, many times what I'm looking for is I'm looking first for effort. Okay, am I giving full-on effort every play? Because if I notice my lack of effort on film, what's very likely is that the other team also is going to notice when I'm giving a lack of effort. Okay, so that may play itself out where maybe it's a run play, and I come off the ball and run plays on film where I'm really kind of going half speed because I know that I'm not getting the ball. Versus on a route, it's very apparent that I'm coming off the ball full speed, especially on a route that I think I'm getting the ball on. Okay, so what I try to do is I try to make sure when I'm watching film, I want every play in a perfect world to look the same off the ball, whether it's a run play or a pass play, whether I'm getting the ball or I'm not getting the ball. So I'm always checking that. That's the first thing I check. How's my effort on every single play? And then I'm going to look at, on this specific route, were there any tendencies or any indicators that I gave away that made it look like I was getting ready to do the thing that I actually did. Maybe that's me running a curl route, and I got halfway through my route and I started to raise up and I started to shorten my strides, and I gave that guy that I was running against basically answers to the test before he had to take it. Okay, it was a cheat sheet for him because he saw that it didn't look like I was running full speed down the field anymore. He saw a tendency or an indicator that showed I was going to do something different. So I'm looking for those indicators next. Okay, and then all in all, the main thing is I'm looking at, when I'm running my routes, does it look like I'm sprinting? Does it look like I'm giving full effort? And is there anything that I can do on this specific play that could have allowed me to get open and create more separation as often as possible? So those are the main things that I would look at. First, from a defensive standpoint, I'm looking at coverages. Okay, and then I'm looking at a specific guy and his tendencies, and I'm taking note of those things. Okay, and then when I'm watching myself, I'm looking for effort. That's the main thing I'm looking for, effort. And then what can I do to eliminate certain indicators? Okay, and then after that, what are some things that I could have done to create more separation on this specific route? How could I have come down with a specific catch? Okay, should I have come inside more if that ball was thrown inside? Should I have come to that thing quicker and made that catch? Maybe I hung out outside too long and I didn't make a play toward the ball until it was too late. Just look for those things, and I think that in the end, those are the things that will end up making a difference as you step on the field again.